Hi, I'm Kelly Monaco. I'm currently unemployed, so I created this channel to earn some extra income. I'll be updating you with the latest news about the Drama General Hospital.
Hello and welcome back. The adjustments made since Jordan woke up are causing a real crisis for Port Charles. What makes this story so powerful is that survival may not bring peace. It may bring a different kind of disaster, one crueler because it does not leave blood on the floor, only confusion in the heart. Jordan could open her eyes after surgery and return to the world in body, but not in memory. She could wake to voices she knows and faces she should trust, yet find that whole pieces of her life have been torn loose. That kind of loss would not only shake her, it would shatter everyone standing around her bed, especially Curtis, who would be forced to confront the possibility that he helped save the woman he still loves, only to lose her in an entirely new way the moment she wakes up. The cruelest twist would be if Jordan's broken memory does not scatter at random, but freezes around Isaiah. Instead of recognizing the emotional road that led her back toward Curtis, instead of remembering the fragile closeness that had begun to grow again between them, she could emerge from surgery locked inside an older emotional truth, one in which Isaiah is the man nearest her heart. For Curtis, that would feel like a punishment so precise it could only have been designed by fate itself. He could stand there exhausted, shaken, carrying the trauma of pulling Jordan from death, only to hear her whisper another man's name with instinctive tenderness. It would not simply hurt, it would humiliate him in the quietest and most devastating way possible. It would force him to smile through confusion, to answer doctors' questions, to remain the steady presence everyone expects him to be, while inside he is coming apart. What would make it even worse is the possibility that Jordan's memory damage would not stop with emotional confusion. If the injury to her mind has scrambled time itself, then the woman who wakes up might not understand which version of her life is real. She might cling to a half-formed past, convinced that the deepest thing she remembers must also be the truest. She could look at Curtis and not understand the tenderness in his eyes. She could recoil from any hint of romance, not because she has stopped caring, but because in her mind he still belongs to a life that no longer exists. She could believe he is standing beside her out of loyalty, guilt, or simple kindness, while her heart pulls somewhere else entirely. That misunderstanding alone would be painful enough, but this story could become far more explosive if Jordan wakes carrying not just the wrong memories, but the wrong certainty. The most shocking turn of all would be for Jordan to discover that she is pregnant while her fractured mind automatically assumes Isaiah is the father. That revelation would rip through every relationship tied to her. In a normal situation, even an unexpected pregnancy would already be enough to send lives spinning. But in this case, the pregnancy would become fused to memory loss, emotional displacement, and buried truth. Jordan would not receive the news as a calm adult prepared to weigh the facts. She would receive it through the lens of injury, vulnerability, and disorientation. She would search for the nearest explanation her damaged memory can offer, and if that memory keeps leading her back to Isaiah, then she may accept him as the father without hesitation. She would hold on to that belief with the desperation of someone trying to rebuild her world from fragments. And once a frightened woman in recovery begins using one false certainty to hold herself together, tearing that belief away becomes almost impossible without destroying her all over again. For Curtis, that would be the moment the nightmare turns total. It is one thing to watch Jordan wake up confused. It is another to watch her build a new emotional reality in which he is no longer central. But to see her carrying a child and assuming another man is the father would push him into a level of pain and fury he may not know how to contain. Curtis is not a man who collapses easily in public. He carries himself with strength, with control, with the discipline of someone used to surviving emotional chaos without letting it rule him. Yet, this would cut deeper than rage because it would strike at identity. If there is even the slightest chance the child could be his, then silence becomes unbearable. Every second he waits would feel like surrender. Every gentle conversation around Jordan's hospital bed would feel like a theft in progress. He would be watching his future, his rights, and perhaps even his child slip into a false narrative while everyone around him urges caution. And caution would be exactly what makes the situation more dangerous. Doctors would warn against upsetting Jordan. Friends would argue that her condition must come first. Portia would see the damage unfolding through her own complicated emotions. Isaiah would be thrown into a moral fire he never asked for, because once Jordan turns to him with emotional certainty, he can no longer remain on the sidelines. He would not simply be a doctor or a concerned presence. He would become the man at the center of a fantasy that may not be real, and the terrible thing is that some part of him might be moved by it. Even if he knows the truth is uncertain, even if he knows Jordan's memory cannot be trusted, how could he remain unaffected by a vulnerable woman reaching for him as if he is the safest part of her world? That would awaken guilt, protectiveness, confusion, and perhaps even longing. The emotional burden on Isaiah would become enormous, especially if he is the only one holding a piece of the truth no one else can see clearly. That is where the secret Isaiah carries becomes the real fuse under the story. He may know more than he wants to say. He may understand details about Jordan's condition, her timing, her emotional state before the crash, or even the possibility that the child's paternity is not nearly as simple as Jordan assumes. If Isaiah holds any knowledge that could either support or destroy Jordan's belief, then he becomes the keeper of a truth that everyone else will eventually bleed over. And the longer he stays silent, the more complicated his silence becomes. At first, it may seem merciful. He may tell himself Jordan is too fragile to be corrected. He may believe the truth can wait until she is stronger. He may even hope the memory will return on its own, rendering all this pain temporary. But secrets never stay temporary in Port Charles. They harden, they spread roots, they begin shaping behavior long before they are spoken aloud. Isaiah's hesitation could unintentionally build the very explosion he hopes to avoid. Jordan herself would be trapped inside the most heartbreaking version of the story. She would not be lying. She would not be scheming. She would simply be trying to understand her own life with a damaged map. She would search Curtis' face and feel pressure without clarity. She would look at Isaiah and feel comfort she cannot fully explain. She would place her hand over her stomach and feel a primal need to protect the child within her, even as her mind struggles to understand what future that child belongs to. The pregnancy would intensify everything because it would make memory personal. Every conversation would become higher stakes. Every medical detail would matter more. Every emotional decision would suddenly carry the weight of motherhood, and Jordan, already fragile from trauma and surgery, would become fiercely dependent on whatever story helps her feel least afraid. If that story says Isaiah is the father, then she may cling to him with a force that shocks them both. That would create a devastating triangle, though not in the ordinary romantic sense. This would not be a matter of flirtation or divided affection. It would be far more tragic than that. Curtis would be fighting not only for Jordan's love, but for reality itself. He would be trying to protect his claim, his bond, and potentially his place in the child's life against an illusion created by injury and fear. Isaiah, meanwhile, would be pulled between compassion and honesty. If he pushes Jordan away too hard, he risks destabilizing her. If he allows her to lean on him, he risks deepening a false belief that will eventually blow up in all their faces. And Jordan, the one suffering most directly, would become the emotional battlefield where love, memory, identity, and truth all collide at once. Curtis' struggle would therefore become more than jealousy. It would become a desperate fight for his rights and his dignity. He would have to decide how far he is willing to go to reclaim the life that feels as though it is being stolen from him in slow motion. Does he push for immediate answers, even if it harms Jordan's recovery? Does he demand paternity testing the moment doctors confirm the pregnancy, knowing how cold and brutal that might appear? Does he trust Isaiah to do the honorable thing, or does he see him as a man whose silence is already becoming its own form of betrayal? These questions would tear at Curtis because they would force him into a role he hates, the role of a man who must fight a wounded woman to be heard. He would not want to pressure Jordan. He would not want to make her feel cornered. But the stakes would be too high for him to simply stand back and hope the truth emerges on its own. And that is what would make the story so emotionally explosive. No one would be entirely wrong, yet everyone would be capable of causing terrible damage. Jordan would be acting from broken memory. Curtis would be acting from love and panic. Isaiah would be acting from compassion tangled with fear. Each of them would believe they are trying to prevent harm, but their conflicting instincts would create more of it. Curtis' urgency would make him seem aggressive. Isaiah's gentleness would make him seem suspicious. Jordan's confusion would make her appear stubborn or irrational, when she is in fact deeply vulnerable. The result would be a storm in which every good intention is misread, and every attempt to protect someone ends up wounding someone else. Portia's presence would only sharpen the emotional cruelty of it all. She would not be able to watch Jordan and Isaiah draw closer without feeling the old ache of what was left unresolved between them. She would also see Curtis unraveling and understand exactly why. That would place her in the unbearable position of witnessing the collapse of multiple emotional lines at once. Any advice she gives could be questioned. Any sympathy she shows could be interpreted as bias. If she leans toward Isaiah, Curtis may resent her. If she leans toward Curtis, Jordan may feel judged. And if she simply steps back, the silence around all of them will become even more destructive. Portia would be standing at the edge of an emotional crater, aware that one wrong word could trigger a full collapse. The pregnancy itself would also become symbolic in a darker way. It would represent not only the possibility of new life, but the terrifying uncertainty of ownership, belonging, and memory. A child should be a source of hope, yet here it would become the center of suspicion and grief. Jordan would treat it as proof of the life she thinks she remembers. Curtis would see it as proof that he must not give up. Isaiah would see it as the reason he can no longer afford to remain passive. The unborn baby would become the silent force, driving all of them toward confrontation, because unlike hurt feelings or romantic misunderstandings, this is not something that can simply be ignored until emotions settle. Time would keep moving. The pregnancy would keep progressing, and with every passing week, the cost of silence would rise. Eventually, the truth would have to break through, and when it does, it would not come gently. Whether Jordan's memory begins returning in flashes, whether a medical complication forces hard conversations, or whether Isaiah finally reveals what he knows, the collapse of the false reality would be brutal. Jordan would have to face the possibility that she trusted the wrong version of her own heart. Curtis would have to reckon with how far pain pushed him toward anger. Isaiah would have to confront the damage caused by every moment he delayed. No one would emerge untouched. But before that day arrives, there is rich and painful drama in the waiting itself, in the hours spent at Jordan's bedside, in the glances between Curtis and Isaiah, in the trembling way Jordan could speak about her baby as if the future is already decided while the men around her know it is not.
I'll be back at the General Hospital soon. We'll see each other again soon. Thank you for supporting my channel. Goodbye and see you again.